welcome to ET Digital Boardroom. This is Vartika Rawat, your host for today's discussion, The New Age CFO Driving Change for Growth. Today's session will deep dive into how the man of numbers has to address technological challenges in this day and age, while the role itself becomes more complex than before. From managing finance to taking strategic decisions, the pandemic has accelerated the technology adoption across the company. But this has also created space for more and more discussions around cost cutting, maintaining liquidity, maximizing ROI on every investment. Therefore, the rising expectation from the finance chief is not only posing challenges, but creating opportunities as well. With that in mind, the objective for today's discussion is to explore who is the new age CFO and how are CFOs driving the change in the current environment. ETCFO brings together a diverse set of excellent speakers who would be decoding the subject with their wide experience today. Please join me in welcoming Ramesh Bafna, who is the Senior Vice President and CFO of Myntra, which is an e-commerce company for fashion and lifestyle. Girdhar Chitlangia, who is the CFO of More Retail, a food and grocery retail firm in India that has online and offline presence. Saranyan Rajagopalan, who's the CFO of TTK Prestige, a well-known household brand manufacturer of kitchen appliance and cookware under the brand name Prestige. Pawan Agrawal, who's the CFO of an FMCG major Marico. Sourabh Mehta, CFO, Sarveshwar Group, which is a food manufacturer. Keval Shah, Director, Industry and Customer Advisory, India Subcontinent, SAP. Sudakshana Ghosh, Industry Business Architect, Team Lead, Industry and Customer Advisory Practice, SAP India. So Sudakshana will also be putting up some questions to the boardroom in order to make the discussion more invigorating. So hello and welcome everyone, first of all. I would like all the speakers to quickly share how they are driving growth in their organization as a new age CFO. So, let's start with Mr. Agrawal.
I think in today's world, CFOs has a much larger responsibility. And the new age CFOs are very, very different from what CFOs used to be, let's say, a decade ago, or let's say even 5 years ago. The things have been changing very, very fast. And today, a CFO is considered as an equal strategic partner in business. And they have to walk together along with the CEO and the business teams and make a difference in terms of business delivery. So it is no more about accounting or no more about financial management, but you have to be an equal partner in the business. And that is what the expectation is from the CEO, from the MD, and from the board. So I think that is the major shift that we have seen in the last 5 to 10 years. And that is what the modern day CFOs are expected to do.
Mr. Rajagopalan.
Right. Today's CFOs is not just crunching numbers. They are like it's not a finance executive. They are an enterprise-wide executive. That's the role of a CFO has become today. They have to be a jack of all trades. So they are into everything. I think that's what is expected out of the modern age CFOs today.
Mr. Chitlangia.
Yeah. So thanks for getting me here, and I agree with Mr. Rajgopal and Mr. Agrawal. I mean, it is no longer accounting. Okay, accounting is maybe in terms of basis point, maybe 200 basis point of the job now. Yeah. A CFO, like Mr. Rajgopal said, he's like everywhere in all fields. He's like a 1 minus X. So at least one of my earlier bosses told me, you are like 1 minus X. If the organization misses something, you are the person who brings it to the table, solves it. Whether it is a technical problem, it is a customer problem, whether it is a business planning problem, and so on and so forth. So it's largely becoming varied across functions. A CFO also has the advantage of having a view on all activities, almost, right? Every function, and hence he's able to contribute much more these days.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bafna.
Yeah, thanks. I think the points are well covered. If you look at e-commerce specifically, in terms of online, it's about 6.5% of the retail market, and it's expected to grow at 35%. That becomes the key focus area in terms of CFO is seen as a growth leader in the company, right? And like Mr. Girdhar said, CFOs have the vantage point in terms of understanding each and every department and working with able to connect the dots across all the departments, right? And profitability and accounting are the hygiene. Accounting is definitely an hygiene part of it. Profitability is basically connecting the dots across all the functions and enabling that. So clearly, on the growth path is the mandate at this point.
Alex, Mr. Mehta, what about you? What do you think?
Hi, ma'am. To continue with everybody's view, yes, I am also with them. Another what I need to add is to the CFO thinks in a different manner. He thinks on a sustainable ROI because day by day, as the competition is increasing, let's say in FMCG sector, whatever the sector, the ROIs are not stagnant. So he has to think on a strategical manner, might be a new business plan, different ways of working, or in fact, more about change the business line itself is what I can say over and above the CFO, because the main objective is to get the ROI, which
Right.
is most important thing what I understand from the organization with a sustainable ROI.
All right. Thank you, sir. So, moving to our expert here on the panel, Mr. Shah, what and how is technology supporting CFOs CFOs to drive change for growth in their organization?
So we have been interacting with a lot of our customers and our and the CFOs that we come in touch with. And what I consistently see is that they are asking for what is the business impact of technology. It's not the technology for the sake of it, right? Where is it impacting? And it's not just about accounting or profitability or compliance. It's more about how is this going to help me grow? How is this going to ensure the return on investment that we were speaking about just minutes earlier? How is it improving my relationship with the ecosystem, right? Because every company is not just worried about themselves, but the entire ecosystem, especially around FMCG and retail, right from the suppliers down to the dealers and distributors and the end consumer, right? Each of those areas need to be well impacted. And how the CFOs, as rightly said by all of the CFOs right on this panel, is how can they be a better business partner, right? And that's where I think technology has been infused into each of the parts of the supply chain or the value chain. And the CFO is actually at the helm of it, getting all the data, what is working, what is not working, what is getting me that ROI.
Right. So very nicely put, sir, that, how can they be better partners is the main question that, CFOs are chasing. On that note, I would like to come to Mr. Rajagopalan, who's the CFO of TTK Prestige. Sir, you have more than 3 decades of experience. How have you seen the CFO role today get more complex and critical?
I think there's a lot of challenges today, which we have. I won't say it was not there, it was there, but not to this extent, where you cannot just do only the accounting and then just take care of the cost control. So you need to be a person who very closely work with your CEO, be a partner on achieving the strategic objectives. There is a lot of compliance challenges that's coming in now. I think so you have to ensure, because these days I think almost every day you are seeing some requirements are coming in on the compliances part. So that's going to be very challenging managing that. And the other part, if you look at is, yes, we have been looked at a person who just be there for all the departments to ensure they get the right support and they don't miss the right opportunity at the right time. So the requirement that's coming in are expected out of CFO is more enlarged these days.
got your point. Just to come back to somebody who is CFO of a born digital company, also who's worked across IT sector, be it Wipro, be it Cisco, be it Flipkart. So, Mr. Bafna, coming back to you, tell me one thing that, how have you, so basically, what are the skill sets that are required for CFOs to drive the change in their companies?
Yeah, it's a very, very important question at this point in time, right? And how, especially in a digital company, I think what's important is the scale of the problem statement and the speed of decision making. If you do a 2x2 of that, right, and that is where e-commerce company will be at a high scale and high speed kind of a charter. And hence, it's important in terms of understanding for a leader to understand the levers at depth, right? In terms of able to connect the dots, understand if 1% of discount means X% of growth or consumer experience and those things. Understanding nuances of business at a detailed level has to be invested very, very deeply. So ability to take that risk, ability to take that decision at immediate point in time is extremely important. And for that decision to happen at that point in time, there's a lot of hard work one has to do over the years in understanding the businesses, right? Let's say big billion days are happening, and if there was a decision to be made at 12 o'clock in the night, we can't just wait and say, I'll decide tomorrow morning, right? And for that decision to happen, there's a year-long preparation, year-long understanding of depth is required. So I think CFOs truly have the T structure where they have to go the entire width, but for the function, they have to go really deep. So that's one big skill set which is required. Far more deep.
All right, sir. I would like to ask Sudakshina if she has any questions for the panelists to please take over.
Thank you so much, Vartika. And it's been a very interesting discussion so far. So what I was, and I completely resonate with most of the points that that have been brought forward. Whether it is in terms of ROI, being a partner to businesses, going deep with the verticals while also having the span of visibility into the business performance. So my question, and I wanted to put this to Mr. Chitlangia first. That's according to you, what are the traits that CFOs need to acquire in order to handle responsibilities other than the pure finance functions?
You see, I think this is a simple one, okay, in my view. I think the most important one is basically he needs to be a business partner. He should be able to see the business end to end. He should be able to understand the consumer. Okay, this is a very basic one. Second one is these days, and I mean what is CFO is if he's not tech savvy. Okay. So he should be able to understand the entire landscapes, what is happening in the world, what are the new things. Okay, he should be without doubt, because he's being relied upon by many people. He should of course have a good business knowledge. He should be a good people's manager. Okay, and because he has to work most with other peer functions, with his peer group, he has to work most than anyone else. Of course, he has a team to lead, like Ramesh just said. But his responsibility spans across functions. He actually has to speak to most peers in day to day, or at whatever frequencies they are required to solve organizational problems and provide solutions. Of course, I mean a CFO should be kind, have an open door go-to person for anyone. At least in my organization, I have a 24/7. Okay, and I tell my people my mobile number is on Google. Please call me anytime you want. You get a WhatsApp response in 30 seconds.
That's an excellent point, sir, in terms of being a people manager is also of equal importance. Mr. Agrawal, I wanted to ask you, what traits do you see as to be the most important ones when, say, in your position at Marico, you would have to approve, say, a new product launch decision, right? Or the entire total cost vis-a-vis the market opportunity that you're looking at, right? Or if it is a supply chain redesigning decision, which are which are sort of verticalized, right? What role do you see yourself playing in these decisions?
Thanks, Udakshina. I think whatever examples you took, and just expanding on the point what Mr. Girdhar said, that all these actually come from your deeper business understanding. So yes, you need to be a business partner. Yes, you need to partner your business teams. You need to partner your CEO. But you can do all of these only when you have a deeper understanding of the entire value chain of the business. So unless and until you have a strong understanding of the company's business model and industry, you won't be able to constructively challenge the business teams on business issues. And if you're not able to appreciate these issues at the core, then you won't be able to add value, and therefore you will not be able to command that position of equality in a team which is the CFO team. So therefore, a deeper understanding of the value chain is absolutely important. So that's one. Number two, I think, again, if you go a little deeper in terms of when we say you have to be a business partner, what all traits that you need to exhibit, right? You have to be more of a enabler versus, let's say, a blocker. Yes, we are, finance guys. We have learned a lot in terms of rules, regulations, but you can't show the rule book each and every time. You have to be far more pragmatic, understand ground realities, and if in your career you have opportunities of doing some operational roles, that really makes you far more practical. So coming to the example of, let's say, when you talked about new product, so over here I believe you need to have a good understanding of your competition. For example, if you are entering into a new category or entering into a new space, so understand the competition well, understand the market well, and then you can have that kind of a conversation with the respective business teams where you could add value. Apart from that, I think another piece which I believe one of the traits which at least people with 15-20 years of experience or more have to acquire is get yourself digitally savvy, because technology or digital transformation I think is manifesting itself in multiple ways. So probably the way we engage with consumers, the channel through which we service consumers demand, the mode in which we transact with the business partners, the manner in which we communicate with our stakeholders, and probably the method in which we sort of review the business performance. So I think CFOs need to quickly adapt to this new age digital world and in fact lead the change in many cases. I think that's one trait which we as a community have to continuously adapt, because technology in my mind is always, while it could be a challenge as well, but at the same time great opportunity, because that can always be used as a competitive advantage. And as far as, let's say, if I talk about my own company, we adopted SAP way back in late 90s, and we believe that those have been great competitive advantage there over our peer sets, and that will really sort of help the CFOs to win in these kind of situations.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Chitlangia and Mr. Agrawal. So the three things that I take away from it are people focus, pragmatism, and digital savviness. Over to you, Vartika.
Thank you so much. Very specific points which our panel has right now pointed out. But what I would want to explore from this panel is that as you've also mentioned earlier that Mr. Chitlangia said very nicely that what is CFO if not tech savvy, and a similar thing was resonated by Mr. Agrawal saying that you have to be digital savvy at this day and age. So while technological advancement is and adoption is so important, what are the challenges for a company like Sarveshwar Group? I would want to explore that. And technology no doubt has enabled CFOs to wear different hats, but how have you basically seen transformation happen in finance function? So Mr. Mehta, over to you.
Ma'am, yes, definitely. As everybody has said, the technology, a CFO looks at tech savvy person. This is helping a lot because as FMCG we are into the direct connect with the farmers. Now the farmers, it is a mobile app is coming, right? So we are getting, or any organization, if it is a tech savvy, it has a large number of procurement, strong procurement team with the technological. Then again, going on the selling platform, like because of this corona, everything was online. So the tech savvy things has increased the business. It has changed the how the conventional way of selling the things. And the another thing, the tech, the moment we use the tech on a daily basis, it increases our IR or also PR, like launching a new product, in stock market filing is there. So these all are something related with the technological, which are increasing the valuation of the company itself. So in that manner, we can look at a CFO performance, that how the technology he is taking to build a stronger organization with a good valuation, integration of the, I can say, software with the customer's requirement and the procurement also. So, and ultimately at the end of the day, once the integration, successful integration happens, you get the results in the form of number crunching. Where do you stand? Well, IRPR also works parallelly, that new products has been launched by this company, that product is coming. Like we see last a decade back, Patanjali was on a daily basis launching new products. So that increased its valuation. Then again, there are n number of opportunities leveraging financing opportunities available with the on the technological platform. Like we have this trades platform where we can have some financing like bill discounting, other things are there. So technology has definitely changed a lot the way of working, the way of, I can say, looking forward, how the business can be more seen on a performing manner and in an efficient manner.
Thank you so much, sir. At this point, I would like to turn to Mr. Shah and ask him that, that the multitasking CFO are, they have the responsibility to steer the business in their companies with agility and resilience. And in your experience, while CFOs have to, loosen their purse string for such technological changes, and implementation, making those investment decision, how should CFOs measure the returns? ROI, as very nicely quoted by one of the panelists earlier, was that sustainable ROI is a challenge, and sustainable ROI is what everybody is looking for. So how should CFOs measure those returns on technology adoption, especially when the returns are tangible and intangible, and what should be the key factors of making those decisions? Because we all know that it is not like there is an option of not being digital. So Mr. Shah, what do you think?
There is no option in terms of not going digital right now. But what we have done for our customers is actually bring a methodical approach to how you assess value of technology. So in fact, we at SAP started this value-based engagement almost 15 years back with our customers, wherein for every customer, we kind of do an analysis as to what was the kind of impact that technology had on their processes, on their P&L, on their experience. And we then actually go ahead and benchmark the customers with their peers as well as their the best performing ones or the top quartile. So this kind of comparison helps the customer in terms of understanding where they can reach with technology, right? So there are certain ways in terms of doing that kind of a benchmarking and value analysis, which we actually provide to all of our customers. One is through the comparison. The second piece is what is the exact impact on the areas of business. So for example, let's say if somebody is implementing a very simple bank connectivity solution. What is the impact of that? Okay, you are automatically being more productive, more efficient, right? Because the integrations are taken care of, right, with the banks. You are getting a real-time cash flow analysis, as well as a real-time cash position across your banking partners. So that is that can itself lend to maybe a decision making, a faster decision making, and could lead to a better investment or borrowing deal than what you were doing earlier, right? So now, for every technology that you are implementing, this is the way you need to see where are the impacts coming from, and what is it that it means for that particular company. So it is quite possible that for some companies it might not make such a huge difference, but for other companies it might actually make a huge difference in that particular area by implementing technology. So this is the kind of assessment that every company goes through, and we also have a method to doing that value analysis. And I think that is the way in terms of adoption of technology, not just for the sake of it, but really assessing that business impact in a methodical manner is what I think today's CFO, at least the digital CFOs, are looking for. The other part that technology is playing is, as everybody said, it is more of a business partnering. CFOs have, although they still look at history and how they have performed, but they more and more are looking at how they will perform based on the strategies that they have put into place, based on, let's say, in a short term, the order book that they have, based on the inventory that they are carrying, what is the kind of profitability, etc. So it's more and more people are looking at forward looking predictive analysis to make decisions, rather than looking at just accounting and profitability or historical information. So I think that is where technology is playing a big role in terms of the forward looking nature. And second is the implementation of technology is not just for the sake of it, but really bringing in the time to value.
All right, sir. Very meaningful. So Dakshana, I would like to ask you to take the discussion forward.
Thank you, Vartika. Very interesting discussion indeed in terms of, looking at the ROI of any investment that is made. And of course, technology is foremost there. My next question, which I wanted to put forward to Mr. Rajagopalan, is in terms of, what are some of the changes that you are adopting, especially in this new normal that we are in, to drive profitability in your organization?
Driving profitability, I strongly believe, I think this is not a role of a CEO or CFO alone. Mm-hmm. This has to come from every function and every manager attached to that function. So this can only happen when we start from the finance side, we start sharing our MIS to those functions and work with them to drive the key metrics. In fact, that is possible when you start automating all your routine works. So you don't on your routine, I think there is no point in doing things manually these days. I think you have to move to digital as quickly as possible, and wherever possible, I think you should do that, so that the team's time is now is available to work with the cross-function team and support them to drive the business, which alone will drive the profitability. Of course, the other one for the key for the profitability is your accountability and the responsibility. As I said, please focus on the system and processes. This will will ensure that things happen right at the first time, and it will remove all the inefficiencies. That is possible only when you go for digitization.
Right. So the key takeaways from what you said, sir, is one is automation when done intelligently is a driver of efficiency, and hence that is a straight addition to the bottom line. And the second is, of course, accountability to follow the processes. That also is a great driver of efficiency. Thank you so much for those insights, sir. I wanted to, ask you, Mr. Bafna. E-commerce, fast growth companies, typically we think that profitability is least of your concerns, but is it so? And how do you bring in these elements of accountability and a process-driven approach to efficiency and effectiveness while being a very fast growth company?
Yeah, it's not either or, right? In the long term, everybody has to be profitable and growing, right? So it's not a choice in the long term. So this is where I completely agree with Mr. Rajagopalan in terms of it's a org-wide mandate in terms of looking at it in the long-term structure. However, from a finance and a CFO perspective, there are few things I have done consciously in the last 2 years in Myntra. One is driving financial transparency, right? And this is where automation comes significantly. There are a lot of data, a lot of financial transaction, and every single data is available with the finance team, with the FP&A team. How do we meaningfully make those available to businesses in a format which is not about accounting, but it's more about the business in terms of they can take decisions basis the trends, that they can make decision basis the cause and effect, or a goal driven, right? So a financial transparency across the organization is the most important, right? And trust me, every business leader wants to grow and be profitable. It's not either or, but it's just about giving the financial transparency. Second thing, I believe what a finance leader should do is framing the right matrices, L0 matrices, right? Because these are the matrices which will drive behavior of the function, which will drive the incentive and bonuses, right? So it is absolutely critical to be very sharp on driving those L0 matrices. I'll give you a simple example in supply chain cost structure. Right? Supply chain is the biggest cost. Should I have a cost per shipment or should I have cost per unit? Which is the right metric for me, right? Because cost per shipment will drive a different warehousing behavior, different design behavior, different behavior from supply chain team. Cost per unit will drive different decisions, right? It's as simple as that. So those are the times where when you are determining something which will have an org-wide impact at the very upstream is where you can control those things. Third thing in my mind is never a static decision. I always try to put everything in 2x2 matrices. Like the last was speed and scale. Here, there are fundamentally two questions which come to anybody's mind: long-term, short-term, right? What is a long-term goal and short-term goal? Second thing is whether it's a global maxima or local maxima, right? Am I optimizing for the function or optimizing for the platform? So if you put this long-term, short-term, and global and local in a 2x2 matrices and put all your problem statement in this, I think there is a lot of clarity will emerge. And it does not mean you don't take short-term impact, but at least you're conscious of, is it a short-term and this is a debt I am carrying. There is tech debt, there is a management debt, right? So this is the management debt I am carrying, which I need to fulfill in 3 months or 6 months down the line. So having that conscious, having it very clearly helps. Yeah, these are the three things which are top of mind.
Right. Very, very interesting, points, especially the 2x2 matrix that you spoke about. We do hear a lot about data-driven decision-making and KPIs and how the value drivers really stack up to actually influence those L0 KPIs. Over to you, Vartika, to take it forward.
Thank you. So, so far we've actually discussed certain challenges as well. Including that compliance is one of the challenges which was, pointed out earlier in the discussion. Right now, Mr. Bafna said that, a balance between short-termism and long-termism, I think it's a age-old discussion and age-old challenge in front of the CFOs, which goes on and on. But, one question that I would like to put to Mr. Agrawal is that, in a sluggish economy, many of these challenges are compounded, and many CFOs today have to execute emergency measures to help companies survive the domestic and global slowdown. So what would it mean for CFOs to then drive growth in their organization, given the dynamic world and also an uncertain one? Yes, sir.
You're absolutely right. I think, as everybody calls it, VUCA. VUCA is here to stay. COVID, no COVID. And yes, COVID has made it far more intense. as compared to what it used to be earlier. So I think 2-3 things in my mind which are absolutely critical to navigate in these kind of times. So I think one, first of all, is that you can never work on a static plan. So you always need to have a dynamic plan. You need to have a plan B, and in current situation also plan C, because you have to keep shifting your forecasting models to scenarios. So rapid acceleration of business will make forecasting near-term revenues and earnings very, very challenging. So you have to keep that dynamism or rolling plan always going in. Second, I believe is uh, you know in any situation, one of the thing which CFO always have to keep in mind is the cost line items, and the cost optimization in any kind of scenario becomes absolutely critical. So I think this is one area where the CFOs have to take lead, and over there, there are multiple levers that could be deployed for driving the cost optimization. So I think in any organization there would be a lot of holy cows. How do you challenge those holy cows? How do you really think of doing a zero based sort of a budgeting? How do you sort of variabilize the fixed cost? So I think those are some of the frames which CFOs need to evaluate with larger teams and drive that mindset in the organization to take care of both the growth challenges as well as the profitability part of it. Because for any growth, what you need is fuel, and that can only be provided within the various line items of the P&L. And apart from that, I believe you know very interesting point which Mr. Ramesh brought in, that you need to bring visibility about the right metrics, and that can also drive a lot of change in behavior. So for a setup like ours, what is important is that you create right sort of metrics. So for, let's say, for driving growth, there could be or driving profitability, you need to have a revenue maximization or cost optimization model. Now, for revenue maximization, you need to create those visibility of having the right better mix of product portfolio. So if you have created a visibility of, let's say, channel brand profitability, earlier, let's say if you're only looking at one SBU but not having various cuts, so when you start providing visibility of various cuts, then a lot of things come out. And there's ownership of the business teams which is far more higher, because it is seen that at this cut this is not making sense, and how do you really influence that? So I think identifying the right metrics, and that could be very different for different organizations, but identifying that, creating a visibility, showing what is not working, and then creating ownership of the respective business teams to drive them, could really lead to a sort of a virtuous cycle, I would say, for creating the growth model.
All right, sir. Mr. Mehta, would you like to add any perspective to it?
Well, what I see is day by day things are become more transparent. The transparency with the compliance, like we have MCA filings, we have filings with the BSCs, all these things. So these has to be on a, I can say, monitored, or it has to be somewhere into a system whereby compliance is being done, so that the transparency is maintained. Any investor or a banker or anybody who are you can say stakeholder, they are they have a confidence building process with the company.
All right, sir. So, similar point to, Mr. Agarwal, that, there should be visibility, and, monitoring that is very essential. Mr. Shah, do you want to, add a perspective here?
I think a lot has been said around profitability and cost optimization recently, and I think uh, proper systems in place would ensure that the profitability metrics by any cut, whether it is a product, whether it is a brand, whether it is a market or a consumer group, right? Uh, we now have detailed financial systems in place and technology in place which can actually give this on a real-time basis to other companies to make decisions. And not just that, the technology has brought in that the kind of demand that you are seeing, okay, and if you fulfill that demand, what is the kind of profitability that you will get to the and then also be able to do scenario analysis as as was being mentioned. If you do various cuts and various scenario analysis, what are your profitability going to be, given your cost structures, given your fixed and variable costs, that can also be predicted in short term scenarios, like let's say next 30 days, 60 days. And this is without sweating anything, without even a manual intervention coming in, right? Because all the data around this, the plans, as long as they are system based, this kind of analysis is possible, and technology will play a big role in terms of making these kind of decisions going forward. The second part is, more and more people are talking about, let's say, additional compliances and transparency. If systems and technology is in place, compliance is going to be by the way, right? It's going to be, yes, I mean, compliance is there and it's happening. Nobody actually needs to sweat in terms of whether the compliances are right, whether they are done on time, because the systems are giving you alerts as to when those compliances are supposed to be there. The system is giving you the transparency to comply in the most efficient and effective manner. So I would say that eventually, with the help of technology, the compliances will be by the way. So the focus of the entire finance organization has to be on the business. Compliances should be by the way, right? And that's where I was talking about that forward-looking curve that the CFOs are asking for, as to how do I steer my business towards growth, towards the right path, and how can I be a crystal ball to the entire business, to the various functions, as to, okay, if you do this, let's see how it would impact us from a business standpoint. For that, I think technology is going to play a big role. And yeah, I think that is where I would say that SAP has been working with their customers as well.
All right.
Just want to add one, couple of points on compliance. So one, I completely agree with Mr. Keval that while technology is always discussed from a business context as to how do we leverage technology in terms of driving business, but there are organizations which have also, including ours, that which has also used technology to drive compliance, because you automate your workflow systems, you automate your compliance system, and that becomes far more easier. So I think, therefore, I completely agree that technology can be a big differentiator in terms of ensuring how do you manage your compliance and giving you a peaceful sleep. So that's one. And second, I believe also compliance, it's more of a mindset issue. I mean, more than let's say whether you have the expertise or don't have the expertise. You can always buy expertise, you can always hire expertise, but what you can't really buy or hire is the compliance mindset. And this mindset has to be organization forward, and this has to be owned by the entire leadership. I mean, this cannot be only done by CFO, that he will be driving compliance. Yes, in most of the organization, the chief compliance officer will be either CFO, or will be reporting to CFO, or he'll be the chief risk officer. But the reality of life is that when you're dealing with multiple functions, and multiple functions deal with various compliance matters, it becomes absolutely important that the entire leadership and team below understand the importance of compliance and how compliance can also be differentiated. So I think more about the mindset at an organization level rather than the question of how do we do it.
Yeah,
Right.
I just want to add a bit on compliance. I mean, we are in the food and grocery industry, right? And people consume food immediately after taking the food home from our store. Imagine we have a set of licenses to be procured and to be made and all that, right? So for us, compliance is table stakes, and I agree with Pawan. It has to be an organizational ownership, not only a finance ownership. And what we also say in our company is, if you think compliance is a problem, try non-compliance. Okay, and that actually is such a powerful statement. Okay, whenever I mean, imagine we are running 800 stores with 12 licenses per store. Okay, and there are, believe me, there are issues, there are challenges. Okay, But we have said that, we run a store with all the licenses. If you think you want to run a store, I mean, imagine a store in a remote corner of India where there is no FSSAI license, and imagine how we will run that store. Yeah. So I mean, remember, I'm sure all of us have heard this. I mean, if you think compliance is a problem, try non-compliance, and you will get to know how difficult business it is.
Very
just very interesting, Mr. Giridhar, but just one point of caution. I think end of the day, non-compliance come and hit you and the CEO, not anyone else.
Of course, without doubt. So that's why we are clear that, we want to be compliant and we want to run business in a very, very, very compliant manner.
Right. So mindset change is important. Organization should take the ownership. And, Mr. Chitlangia, as you've reflected in your point that, that visibility is really required through technology. And I'm sure, if compliance can be made easier with technology, which is happening, then it's I'm sure anytime a delight for CFO. At this point, I'm sure that Sudakshana would be having some question for our panelists. So please intervene.
Yes. It's a very, very interesting discussion, and Mr. Chitlangia, it sums it up all, in terms of, your thoughts that you shared in terms of non-compliance and just the risk that it carries. So just, I think, to summarize this discussion, if we wanted to, this is one question that we actually wanted to pose to all the panelists. From given the view that you have across the organization, what are your top 3 strategic priorities, both in the near term, considering both the near term and the long term, as we hopefully come out of this emergency pandemic situation and look at a return to growth. We'll start with Mr. Agrawal, and then we can go around the panel.
Yeah, I think one of the clear priorities in my mind is how do you accelerate the digital adoption across the organization? Because as was mentioned by one of our 2 panelists, that this is definitely not a choice. This is something which if you do not do, you will become obsolete. So therefore, that clearly remains one of the top priority for the organization as to how do you adopt digital way of working in across the verticals. So that's one. I think second is the business environment is getting tougher by the day, and therefore I believe the role of CFO is definitely in terms of identifying where do you sort of how do you weed out the inefficiency in the system, how do you keep continuously working on various cost line items, and how do you keep optimizing the cost so that you can provide funds for investing behind brand building and business. So that becomes the second priority in my mind from an organizational standpoint. And third, of course, I think which goes without saying in terms of how do you keep continuously partnering the business, identifying opportunities within your categories, within your adjacent categories. How do you keep working closely with your business teams? How do you support them? How do you support them both strategically and operationally, and keep this going? So I think those will be the 3 picks from my end in the current environment.
Thank you, Mr. Agrawal. Over to you, Mr. Bafna.
So top of mind first is healthy ecosystem for me in terms of we have Kirana store, MSMEs, we have delivery partners, our employees, sellers, right? How do we ensure they get vaccinated? We have programs for all of the entire ecosystem as well, beyond just our employees, right? Helping them with working capital. A lot of POs have been raised, and if MSMEs are not able to fulfill it, so having that lending program in place. So healthy ecosystem is number 1 priority, because that's the most important piece for the supply side. Second thing is understanding growth and customers, right? That's the second point. Understanding this e-commerce is a growth sector. How do we take every opportunity on the growth side? How do we understand the customers more deeply? And customer charter is as much as a finance charter than as a business charter. So that is number 2. Number 3, as Pawan mentioned about the cost side, I would put it as investment versus burn mindset, right? If there is any cost which is incurred, which has a return in the future, right? So those are investments, and which does not have any return in the future is burn, right? It's the same spend, but how you look at it, and how do you keep the positive flywheel on the investments happening, and the source of funds can be a very tight efficiency on the burn side. yeah, this will be top 3 for me. Thanks.
Excellent points, Mr. Bafna. Mr. Chitlangia, what are your thoughts and in terms of the priorities for more retail?
So for us, business going back to business as usual. Yeah, to be able to go back to office, number one. Okay, and it's an important one now.
Yes.
Having been 15 months into the pandemic. Yeah. Second one is, of course, keep a sharp eye on profitability and costs as we reopen. Number 3 is, of course, a capital allocation. Like Pawan said, there will be opportunities which will come in our business, adjacencies and everything. So I think it exists for everyone. Important task for us to keep an eye on the capital allocation so that we can get the maximum return for them.
I think, the CFOs, we have to always keep an eye on the cost and the profitability. That's what keeps us going. Thank you for those points, Mr. Chitlangia. Over to you, Mr. Mehta.
Definitely, as everyone has said, I would like to add something. Well, the short term are always there, which we have also read, we know, like ROI, PNL, leveraging, compliance, all these things are for, as I can categorize them, are the short term, because yes, definitely the short term, achieving the short term goals, it leads to a long term goals also, which everybody will accept. That is the valuation of your business organization. Where does it stand? Whether it is in the stands of the stock market, whether it is in the presence in which your presence in which the market you want to penetrate or you are operating into it. So meeting the long-term goal, what I understand that short-term goals has to be very are easily achievable, but those has to be very strategically defined, whereby long terms achievement becomes a more realistic.
Thank you, Mr. Mehta. So, Mr. Rajagopalan, you have the final word in terms of what the strategic priorities need to be for an organization and what they are for your organization.
Right. As you said, there are 3 we are looking at right now. As most of us said, I think one is a digital transformation. See, all of us had hit by the COVID pandemic. But one thing that happened in this pandemic is all of us started focusing on digital transformation. Of course, a lot of us were working on it for last few years, but the focus has come in only now. People started thinking that it is a must and it's not a nice to have. So that is our primary strategic objective we have, that we are working towards. See, wherever possible, digitize it. Number 2 is be present where your customer is going for. Don't look at a particular channel. Wherever your customer is there, please ensure you spread across your presence so that not one channel is your priority. Spread across. Wherever the customer go, he is able to get what he wants. Because that's something we have learned in the last 1 year, where when we have lockdowns across, some channels were not open, some channels were partly open. So that priority, I think, strategic objective we are working on. The third most important one is on the cost optimization. If you look at, I think most of the organization went through a difficult time in the last 1 year. But we all came out in flying colors. I think almost most industries today, they came out in flying colors. Most of them reported the best numbers. How is it all possible? Because of the cost optimization. So that is another objective I think we decided that we should focus going forward. So digital transformation, present where your customer go, and then only cost optimization.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Rajagopalan. So Vartika, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sadakshana. And you've already, taken the closing bites from everyone. And we have actually, reached towards the end of the ET CFO boardroom discussion. And as we close, I would just want a one-liner from all of you on, new age CFO, but how to stay relevant. Just one line, if you guys can, tell us.
Right. Don't hesitate to talk to people, get their ideas, and don't hesitate to receive the criticism. I think that one mantra, I think the CFO need to have, because he or she is not going to be perfect at right time, but be ready for and take it.
Mr. Bafna.
Keep learning and have a solid network professionals, a CFO network or any network, and use your network efficiently.
Mr. Chitlangia.
I mean, I tend to agree with Mr. Rajagopal. I mean, be ready to, it's a difficult job, the CFO's job, okay? So be ready to take the criticism, okay? And as Ramesh said earlier, I mean, be as transparent as you can, actually, so that solves your problem.
Mr. Agrawal, how to stay relevant?
Be open to change and embrace the change.
Mr. Mehta.
Well, it has to be very digital savvy, focused on the consumers, customers, and highly interpersonal skill also it is required as of today. Because interacting with n number of agencies, business, banks, financial institutions, this requires a little bit of interpersonal skills also required.
Keval Shah, Mr. Shah. So, adoption and reception. What is your advice for, fellow CFOs?
Reimagine business and finance with technology. I would say that would be my mantra. How can you reimagine how you do things today and how you want it to be done?
So this has really been great. And on behalf of all the participants and ETCFO team, I thank all the speakers for sparing their precious time and addressing the queries in this session. Many thanks. I would also like to thank my team for creating this platform and organizing it beautifully. And most importantly, we would like to thank the attendees for their enthusiastic participation. Please stay connected and do subscribe and join ETCFO updates every day through our daily newsletter, specially designed for finance professionals. And always, always, always send us your thoughts and feedback and requests, because it is really your feedback that makes ETCFO tick. So many, many thanks. And we hope to be back really soon with another interesting topic. Thank you so much.